Welcome back to r/neighbors from hell, where people share stories about their crazy neighbors, and if you are new to my channel, please don't forget to subscribe to join our amazing community, and without any further ado, let's dive right into the stories. The first one is titled, "Neighbors repeatedly camped on my property and made huge bonfires without permission. I got them kicked out." I have what some people might consider a huge amount of land, and I will admit that is true. Unlike a lot of people that have a ton of land though, I don't actually use it at all for farming or anything like that. My house is built on the part of the land that is a more open area, while some other spots further out have more trees and it is almost like a forest. I was worried for a long time about people not knowing it was my property and went through a process of figuring out the best way to let everyone know. Most of you are probably screaming in your heads that I should have just built a fence. I really did not want to though, because people went on morning jogs, walked their dogs, played catch with their kids. It was not really anywhere near my house, so I did not mind it. Instead, I settled for signs stating that it was private property and putting them around so they could not really be missed. It worked out pretty well, and yes, people still went on my land and did things like go for runs through it without permission, but they were not doing any harm. Heck, sometimes parents would notice the signs and come to ask me if it was okay that they were there with their kids, because they were not really any safe parks for them to just run around and play in the area. I always said yes, and the only thing that I would ask of anyone was to just clean up after themselves. Many people did not have large land and were grateful that I was lending part of mine that I wasn't using to people. I even ended up getting thank you cards in the mail, and some mother even made me a lasagna once. It might seem weird where you are from, but that is about 90% of the people that live in my neighborhood. We are nice and friendly and do things like that. Of course, this is not a happy story, so now that you all feel warm and fuzzy inside, I get to talk to you about my neighbor that basically leads the other 10% of people, the ones I will call the a-holes. I noticed a fire near the part of my property where the tree line started and got really worried. I thought someone was smoking and dropped a cigarette, or some teenagers were being stupid with a lighter. I did not want a huge fire to break out, and it looked small, so I rushed with a fire extinguisher, trying to take care of it myself when it was still small. When I got there though, I did not find a forest fire. What I found was my neighbor, about 5 other people, tents and a bonfire. I could not believe that they had the nerve to do something like this, and especially without asking me. I let the small stuff slide, but there was no way these people were camping on my property. Like I said before though, this community is nice, so I politely point out the sign that it is my private property and I don't feel comfortable with them camping on it. He makes some comment about me trying to control all of the woods as they put out the fire and pack up their things before sulking off. The funny thing is, he kept grumbling about the woods the entire time, while he was not even in any woods. He was at the clearing area, so he was not even at the tree line yet. I guess he wanted to camp in the woods without the actual woods. Either way, I thought it was over and put it out of my mind until I saw an even bigger looking fire in about the same spot a week later. I had to assume the worst though, so I rushed over there in case there was an actual fire. Same neighbor with 4 friends once again with tents trying to camp. A bigger bonfire that he seemed proud of, because when I looked at it, he just gave me a smug smile like I won. Everybody has their limits, and honestly, I reached mine with this guy wanting to treat my land like a personal campsite. Me? I told you last week that this is my private land and you are not welcome to camp here. Neighbor: that is a bunch of crap and you know it. Me: excuse me? Neighbor: you're excused, and stop pretending like this whole area is your land, and we all know it isn't. Anybody could put signs up saying it is their land. Hell, I could do that myself and it would not mean anything.
I see people going through and hanging out here every day, and your house is far enough away that you don't notice anybody.
Me? I sure noticed you and your fire. There is a law about starting a bonfire on one's property around here because of the climate. You can catch the whole land with that huge fire, and it is my land that will be destroyed. I'm telling you to leave right now and I won't ask again. Neighbor.
Good, don't ask again. Slink away back to your house and leave us in peace to camp. You are lucky that I don't call the police on you for harassing me and for putting up these fake signs.
I did go back to the house not to give up, but because he gave me an idea. I was so riled up that I could not think straight and probably wouldn't have thought of calling the police until the next day when I calmed down. Instead though, I called them about the group trespassing on my land, refusing to leave and setting a potentially dangerous fire. That last part grabbed their attention right away and told me that they would be right over to talk to them and get them off the land. So I kept a far enough eye on them to not get into another argument until the police arrived and I brought them over to where Neighbor and his friends were. Neighbor did not take it well and started yelling about how I was trying to control all of the woods and that I should be arrested for falsely calling the police. They did not like his attitude and slowly explained to him that not only was I correct in saying that it was my property, but that the bonfire they started was against the law as well. He basically told them that they had two options they could do right now. Either way, Neighbor was getting a fine for the bonfire, which by now his friends put out. As for trespassing, I told the police officers that I was willing to not press charges if he left my property with all of his belongings and never came back. I can hear the boos now for me not getting him arrested, but I just cannot be spiteful and really I just wanted him gone and out of my mind. The later options were obviously chosen as the police escorted all 5 of them off of my property with their tents. The police recommended a fence if I really wanted to keep people out, but I still cannot bring myself to do that. Not only the cost of a fence that large, but also because I don't want to punish the 90% of good people for the 10% of jerks. It brings me joy when I'm outside and can see a man with his dog jogging in the distance, or a dad trying to teach his son how to hit a ball off one of those standing trees. Good people doing wholesome things for me makes up for one idiot trying to burn down my entire land and acting like he was some wilderness explorer. And yeah, ripe stars, if someone repeatedly trespassed on your property and also made huge bonfires that are absolutely illegal, what would you have done if you were in OP's shoes? Please let us know in the comments. Either way, if you have watched until here and still enjoy the stories about crazy neighbors and entitled strangers, then please don't forget to post some star emojis in the comments if you want to support my channel. Thank you so much in advance. And the next one is titled, I kicked an entitled Karen out of my home. This happened about 10 years ago after I had gone to visit my best friend overseas and stayed at his place. I thanked him and his family and said they are more than welcome to come stay with me if they ever came to visit me. My best mate's brother on/off again girlfriend, who we will call BITCH aka Karen, just so happened to be there when I made the offer, and I got along fine with her for the time I spent with her over there, which was not a lot, but it was enough to think she was an okay person to get on with, as she had not shown her true colors yet and she mentioned she was planning to visit my country in about a year, so I extended the offer to her, so we swapped numbers and I did not think much about it after that. Fast forward a year and I get a call from Karen telling me she is in the country and she would be in my area in about a month as she travels around. I say cool, how long are you planning on staying for? And she says, oh, it will just be a couple of weeks, so I say cool, if it is just a couple of weeks you are welcome to stay with me, and she says thank you. 3 days later she calls me and tells me she is already on her way. That probably should have been the first alarm bell, that it went from a month's notice to very short notice, but it did not put me out, so I did not worry about it. So she turns up and I go and help her with her bags, and the first thing I notice is her car absolutely stinks. The type of stink that makes you want to dry reach. It's clear that she has been living in the car. It smelled of death, but again, I did not think much of it as she was traveling on a budget around the country, and the stinking car is her problem, not mine. I was not ever going to get in it after smelling that. Then, within 20 minutes of being in my house, she broke the toilet. Luckily, I was able to fix it, but I could tell by the way she was pressing the button while I was trying to fix it that she was using way too much force, so I had to potty train her on how to press the button on a toilet correctly. However, it did not work though. I think I fixed it another 3 to 4 times after that because she broke it again. I have compiled a list of the worst things, but not all the things she did to save this from being an even bigger novel, as there were plenty more stories about her I could tell you. Number 1, she spilled ink out of a pen from chewing on it all over my computer desk and just left it there for me to find and did not say a word about it. She totally ruined the desk, and when I asked her what happened, she said,
"It is just a desk. You have pens on it. It happens."
Number 2, she had a spare set of keys I gave her for the apartment so she could come and go as she pleased, and when I came home from work one day, she had left the keys in the outside of the door for anyone to take and come back and rob my place later. Luckily, I found them first, and when I said, "Hey, you left the keys in the door," she shrugged her shoulders as if to say,
"What's the big deal then?"
She noticed I was angry and said sorry sarcastically. That really pissed me off after their desk incident. She had no regard for anyone's property at all. I took the keys back after that, and she had no way of getting in if I was not home and had to wait for me outside, which did happen a few times. Number 3, I take her out and show her around my city and notice if I don't pay for her, she always has an excuse not to spend money. I said, "Do you want to go to the zoo?" She says no animals should not be locked up. I don't agree with that. Then I ask, "Okay, do you want to take a ferry ride?" "No, too expensive." "The museum?" "No, too expensive." That became her go-to answer for everything. It is too expensive. It got to the point that I asked her straight out, "Do you have any money at all?" Turns out she did not have much, certainly not enough to travel or sightsee, as she was scraping by on her last dollars and cents. Number 4, she did not shower for the first 2 weeks or wear shoes if she didn't have to, and the bottom of her feet were putrid black, and I had a nice off-white leather couch. And I watched her put her putrid feet all over it, and this is when I started getting fed up with her. When she did shower, she left clumps of hair stuck to the tiles in the shower, which I found very odd because her hair always looked like it had not been washed in years. Number 5, I had to get up for work at 4 AM, and at 1 AM she turns the TV on and just blares it really loudly and wakes me up. I come out and say, "Hey, turn the TV down, it's way too loud." And she says,
"Did it wake you?"
I said, "Wake me, you're going to wake the whole complex having it that loud." Again, she shrugs her shoulders and says,
"I didn't think it was that loud."
I have to ask her 2 more times to turn it down to get it to an acceptable level for the neighbors at 1 AM in the morning. I ended up going to work with a lack of sleep that day. Number 6, I find out through conversations with my best mate overseas that she is intending on staying with me for 4 to 6 months, maybe even longer, if she can, after telling me it will only be 2 weeks. She has already well outstayed her welcome. It is closer to 3 months now than 2 weeks. And here also is the straw that finally broke the camel's back. One night, I made a nice roast dinner with all the trimmings, baked veggies, etc. And as I go, alright, cooking a roast even if I do say so myself, so it was ready to serve, and I had my girlfriend over that night too, and that is when Karen decides to tell me she was a vegan. I sort of realized she was only eating vegetarian foods mostly, but she never mentioned any dietary requirements to me before that night, so why would you suddenly announce you are vegan 2 months after arriving? So I said, "Oh, there are plenty of veggies here, you can have." And her reply was,
"No, I cannot eat those. They were cooked with the meat."
By this point, I am so done with her and say, "Okay, well, that is all we have for dinner, unfortunately." She ends up raiding my pantry and eating stuff not intended for her, so once again she pissed me off. The next day is my day off and I have a lot of errands to run, so just being polite I ask her if she wants to come along, expecting she would say no, knowing it is just boring errands I am doing, but she takes me up on the offer. We end up at the mall and there are a few things I need to do, so we agree she will go and find something to eat for lunch while I take care of the boring stuff and we will meet up later. So I am walking back to meet up with her and I cannot believe my eyes. She is holding a KFC box. I am like a bull now with steam coming out of my ears and nose and I say to her, "You have got to be kidding me right now. Since when do vegans eat KFC?" And her reply I will never forget. She says,
"Yeah, sometimes you just have to take what is available."
Yeah, right. In a mall she could not find a vegetarian or vegan option. She was forced to eat KFC. F off. What a moron. That was it. I was done with her and now it was just a matter of how I was going to tell her, and I came very close to telling her straight out when we get home, pack your stuff and get the F out of my house. But after a conversation with my girlfriend we came up with the plan that my girlfriend's mother was coming to stay at short notice, so Karen needed to leave ASAP. Karen was not happy about it at all, saying she could not afford to go anywhere else, but I did not care, and when she complained I just said, "Sorry, my hands are tied, you need to leave today, no exceptions." She took the hint before it got nasty, thankfully, as I was not taking no for an answer. The last I heard, she was complaining about the horrible shared house accommodation she ended up in that was too expensive. Moral of the story, you never truly know someone until you have lived with them. And ripe stars, that is definitely something I despise. I just hate freeloaders. Have you ever lived together with someone who did not pay their fair share? Please let us know in the comments if you have ever been in a similar situation. I would love to hear from you. And ripe stars, with this we have reached the end of the video. However, if you still cannot get enough of my content, then I would highly suggest to check out my endless binge watch playlist, which will soon show up in the left corner of the screen. In addition, I would really appreciate it if you could not only subscribe to the channel but also turn on the bell notifications, which you can do by clicking on the little bell icon right next to the subscribe button. This will help my channel tremendously, and this will make sure that you don't miss any of my videos. Furthermore, if you want to see additional ripe content that I don't post on YouTube, then I would suggest to head on over to patreon.com/ripeyoutube for more than 50 exclusive videos that you will not see anywhere else. Thank you so much for your amazing daily support, and I hope to see you again tomorrow.